Alright, so in this video we will talk about how can we understand what is a soft architecture through the analogy with a building activity. Okay, so the discipline of architecture, that is the design and construction of buildings, offers a very rich base of concept for our software architecture. Yeah. So through this analogy, in the summary, they have a lot of processes in common, and since we all maybe have a sort of a knowledge, pre-knowledge about this building activity, so this will help us to understand what is the soft architecture. Okay, so in the highly condensed version, so requirements for a building are collected. When you want to build a house, first you need to collect the requirements, and a design is created to satisfy those requirements. So the design is refined to yield elaborate blueprints. Then construction is based on the blueprints, and the resulting structure is then occupied and used. So notionally, in the software domain, requirements are specified. A high-level design is created. Detailed algorithms are developed based upon that design. Code is written to implement the algorithms. And finally, the system is deployed and used. And during which, when the code is written, it's like you contract out this construction work to a contractor. And you can also outsourcing your code to some offshore outsourcing company to have those implemented. So it's quite similar. And there are several insights that we can see from this kind of analogy. First, perhaps the foremost is the very concept of building have an architecture, where the architecture is a concept separate from but linked to the physical structure itself. So does the software. The software definitely will have an architecture. Although I know some of you may just implement the software without designing, however, when you implement that, the architecture is there. It's just you're not designing it. However, the architecture is still there. So we do have architecture, and it's linked to the software itself, like the building. And second insight is that the properties of structures are induced by the design of their architectures. For instance, a castle with high, thick walls and narrow window is designed that way so that it has excellent defensive properties, right? And so does the software. When you design the software, you need to design those attributes that's for the purpose of that software. Okay. A third insight is the recognition of distinctive rule and character. So, of the architect. So the architect of, no matter it's building or software architect, they have to have a maybe cross-discipline knowledge, not only in engineering, no matter it's software engineering or building engineering, they have to have this ability in engineering, construction, or they have to have this ability to tell how to be able to tell the look of the building, like, or for soft architecture, maybe the UI of the software, right? You need to be able to tell what looks good, what looks ugly. So it's not only engineering thing for architect. You need to know basically the whole area of this building or implementation process, from the requirements to the final deployment. Okay. Yeah. And the fourth insight is that the process is not as important as architecture. This is not to say that process is unimportant. On the contrary, architects and construction companies clearly follow this standard processes to guide their daily activities and ensure the qualities. So, but the architects and the engineers responsible for this structure must keep its design qualities at the forefront. Process is present to serve those ends, but not to be an end itself. It's more important. Architecture itself is more important. You can follow different kinds of processes to implement one architecture. However, if you perfectly follow some process, however, if you do not have a well-designed architecture, the final work will still be horrible. Okay. A fifth insight is that architecture has matured over the years into a discipline. A body of knowledge exists about how to create a wide range of buildings to make many types of needs. So the software is the same. We have a matured pre-knowledge exists there. We have a whole bunch of available architecture design patterns there to help us with the design, right? So the concept of architecture styles, the concept of architecture styles actually help us with the understanding of software architecture styles. Yeah. One way architecture styles can be summed up is as a set of constraints put upon development in order to elicit particular desirable qualities. For example, the Swiss chalet style, which is a building style, has a constraint that the roof have steep slopes. Does anyone know why is that? Why the Swiss chalet style has a steep slope? The quality of the steep slope actually elicit this kind of constraint elicited is that the chalets tend to do well in areas of heavy snowfall.